The unexpected encounter. The evening streets were crowded with people rushing home after a long day. Cars honked, vendors shouted, and footsteps echoed on the pavement. In the middle of all this noise, a young beggar boy stood quietly near the corner of a large shopping mall. His clothes were torn, his feet were bare, but his eyes were sharp and steady. Unlike other beggars, he was not calling out for coins. He waited, watching carefully as if looking for someone special. That someone appeared, a tall, well-dressed millionaire stepping out of a black car. His shoes shined, his coat was expensive, and his face showed the confidence of a man who had never known hunger. People moved aside for him, some even nodding with respect. The beggar boy, however, did not step back. Instead, he walked forward with small but firm steps. "Sir," the boy called out. His voice was not weak but strong, almost demanding attention. The millionaire stopped for a moment, surprised that a beggar dared to speak to him so directly. He frowned, ready to wave him away. But the boy continued, "Sir, I can do something that will change your life forever." The crowd around them froze. Some laughed softly, thinking the boy had gone mad. Others shook their heads, waiting to see how the rich man would react. A beggar making such a claim, it was unheard of. The millionaire narrowed his eyes. He had heard all sorts of requests in his life. Money for food, money for medicine, money for shelter. But never had he heard a child make such a bold promise. "Change my life," he said slowly, his voice filled with disbelief. "And how would you, a beggar boy, do that?" The boy did not look away. His face, though young and dirty, carried a strange seriousness. "I will show you, sir," he replied softly but firmly. "But you must give me a chance." Something about the boy's tone unsettled the millionaire. He could have walked away, dismissed him with a gesture, but curiosity stirred in his heart. Why was this boy so confident? What secret did he carry? For the first time in years, the millionaire felt challenged, not by another businessman, but by a barefoot child standing in the street. The people around whispered, their eyes darting between the boy and the millionaire. Some expected anger, others expected laughter, but none expected what was about to happen next. The millionaire tests the boy. The millionaire stood still for a moment, staring at the boy with sharp eyes. He was not a man who liked being challenged, especially not in front of strangers. Yet there was something about the boy's steady voice that would not let him walk away. Slowly he folded his arms across his chest and said, "Very well. You say you can change my life. Prove it." The boy's heart beat faster, but he did not show fear. He nodded. "Ask me to do anything, sir," he said. His voice was calm, but his small hands clenched tightly at his sides. The millionaire thought for a while, then pointed toward a group of vendors nearby. "Those men argue every day about who sells more," he said. "They never listen to each other. If you are so bold, go and make them listen." The crowd that had gathered laughed. What chance did a barefoot beggar have to stop grown men from fighting? But the boy walked forward with quiet steps. He stood between the vendors and raised his hand. His voice was not loud, but clear enough to be heard. "Why fight when you can both gain more?" he said simply. The vendors looked at him in surprise. The boy explained with quick, clever words how they could share space, how they could call more customers by helping each other instead of fighting. His ideas were simple, yet so practical that even the stubborn vendors paused. For the first time they listened. Some in the crowd clapped. The millionaire's brows lifted slightly. He had expected the boy to fail. Instead, the boy had shown unusual wisdom. Still, he was not ready to admit it. He wanted to test him further. "Very well," the millionaire said coldly. "But words are easy. Tell me this. What does a beggar know about success? What do you know about a life like mine?" The boy turned toward him slowly. His face held no anger, only calm strength. "I know hunger, sir. I know pain. I know what it means to have nothing and still wake up with hope. That is more than most rich men ever learn." The words struck the millionaire deeper than he expected. For the first time, silence fell over the busy street. The boy's answer did not sound like a child's. It sounded like truth carved from suffering. The millionaire felt something stir inside him, something he had not felt in years: respect. The truth behind the claim, the millionaire could not hide his surprise. The boy's words cut through his pride like a sharp blade. For a moment he wanted to dismiss them, to laugh it off as childish talk. But something in the boy's tone carried the weight of real experience. This was not the voice of someone who read books about life. It was the voice of someone who had lived through struggle. The crowd leaned closer, waiting to see what would happen next. The millionaire spoke, his voice lower this time. "Who are you, boy? Why do you speak as if you've seen the world?" The boy took a deep breath. His eyes turned downward for a moment before he raised them again with quiet strength. "My father was once a teacher," he began. "He taught children how to read and write. But when he died, I was only 6. My mother tried to take care of me, but sickness took her too. I was left with nothing, not even a roof." Gasps spread among the listeners. The boy continued, his voice steady though his story was heavy. "Since then I have lived on the streets. I begged, I worked small jobs, I cleaned shoes, and sometimes I went hungry for days. But while I suffered, I also watched people. I studied how they spoke, how they traded, how they made decisions. I remembered the lessons my father once taught me, that wisdom is not in books alone, but in eyes that see and ears that listen." The millionaire listened silently, his chest tightening. He remembered his own father, a strict man who taught him about numbers and business. But he had never faced the kind of pain this boy described. The millionaire had always believed money was the only shield in life. Now before him stood a barefoot child with nothing, yet with courage greater than most men he knew. The boy's final words shook him deeply. "You asked what I know of success. I know this, sir. True success is not only about wealth. It is about lifting others when they cannot stand. It is about remembering hunger even when your table is full. That is why I stopped you today, because I believe you have the power to change more lives than just mine." The street went silent. The millionaire felt the weight of every eye on him, but he no longer cared. For the first time in years he felt humbled. The beggar's bold claim was no trick. It was truth, a life-changing decision. The millionaire stood frozen, the boy's words echoing in his mind. For years, he had lived in a world of polished offices, luxury cars, and endless meetings about profit. He had forgotten what hunger looked like, what pain sounded like. Yet here stood a child, dirty, barefoot, and trembling from the cold, teaching him lessons that no rich friend, no business partner had ever dared to speak. The crowd watched in silence, waiting for the rich man's response. Some expected him to mock the boy, others thought he might simply walk away. But instead, the millionaire's eyes softened. For the first time, he saw not a beggar but a soul braver than most. Slowly, he stepped forward. "What is your name, boy?" he asked quietly. The boy hesitated. "Arif," he said softly, almost unsure if the man really wanted to know. "Arif," the millionaire repeated as if memorizing it. He removed his leather wallet, and for a brief moment the crowd thought he would simply hand the boy money. But instead, he closed it again and slipped it back into his pocket. "Money will only feed you for a day," he said. "But I think you deserve more than coins. You deserve a chance." Gasps spread among the people standing nearby. The millionaire turned to his driver and gave a firm instruction. "Take him to my office tomorrow. He will study. He will work. And he will never beg on these streets again." Arif's eyes widened in disbelief. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. "Sir, are you serious?" he whispered. The millionaire bent slightly, meeting the boy's eyes directly. "You changed me today, Arif. You reminded me that wealth without compassion is empty. You claimed you could change my life, and you were right." His voice cracked slightly, and the crowd could feel the weight of his sincerity. Tears welled in Arif's eyes, but he held them back with dignity. The people around began to clap, some with joy, others with relief. A beggar boy's bold claim had not only shocked a millionaire, but had moved his heart enough to act. As the millionaire walked away with Arif beside him, whispers spread like fire through the crowd. Some said it was a miracle, others called it destiny. But one truth stood clear. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come not from the mighty, but from the smallest voices of the street. And that day, The millionaire's life and the boy's changed forever. A new beginning the next morning, Arif stood nervously outside the tall glass building that touched the sky. He had never seen such a place up close before. The polished floors reflected his tired face, and the guards at the entrance looked at him with suspicion. For a moment, fear crept into his heart. What if the millionaire had only spoken in kindness, but forgotten by now? But then, a familiar black car pulled up. The millionaire stepped out, his sharp suit shining in the morning light. When his eyes fell on Arif, he gave a small nod. "You came," he said firmly, almost as if he had expected nothing less. Inside the office, everything felt overwhelming. Phones rang, people walked quickly carrying files, and machines hummed in the background. Arif's bare feet felt out of place on the shining marble, yet he walked with quiet courage. The millionaire guided him into a large room and introduced him to his secretary. "This boy will learn," he said. "Teach him how to read, how to write, and how to carry himself in this world." The secretary blinked in surprise, but she obeyed. She gave Arif a book and a pencil. His small fingers held the pencil awkwardly, but determination filled his eyes. He struggled at first, but he refused to give up. Days turned into weeks. Every morning Arif arrived on time. He cleaned the office when asked, ran errands with speed, and studied late into the night. His hunger for knowledge was greater than his hunger for food. The millionaire watched quietly, sometimes from a distance, sometimes with a proud smile. Slowly, he began to see not a beggar but a student, a young mind ready to bloom. One evening, the millionaire invited Arif into his private office. On the desk lay several files, contracts worth millions, yet his attention was fixed only on the boy. "Arif," he said, "do you know why I brought you here?" Arif looked down. "Because I was bold enough to stop you?" The millionaire shook his head gently. "No, because you reminded me that true strength is not measured by wealth, but by courage. You saw me as a man, not a rich figure, and you dared to speak truth when no one else would." Tears filled Arif's eyes. In that moment, he realized his life was no longer a story of begging on the streets. It was the beginning of something greater, a future shaped by courage, hope, and the belief that one bold claim could indeed change everything.